What's up, Dragon Brood? So today I am bringing you the updated Gruul list. I know it's only been like a few days since Ikoria came out, but there's been a lot of changes in Standard, and we've had to make some changes. And by the way, look, I have my Gruul shirt. So I put this on when I woke up just so I knew to bring you the deck I told you I was going to bring you. There's definitely some changes that we weren't expecting, and that's okay, but it was worth it. So you're just going to have to bear with me. But before we get to that, y'all know the drill. If you haven't hit the like button, please do so. If you haven't smashed the subscribe button, please do so. I'll roll the intro and get us into the deck list. So this time I decided I was just going to use Arena itself to do the deck list. Just, I guess, for some amount of, I don't know, maybe some validity, just so we can say, look, I played it up to Mythic, so you know I've actually done it. And I don't know, there's just something to that. So I just figured I would do that. Anyway, let's take a look at the list. Go in here, and here's our Gruul Ikoria. We're about to rename this. We're going to call this version 2 because that's where we're at. I know people like looking at deck lists multiple ways, so we're going to take a look at it, and then we'll take a look at the sideboard. But what we're looking at here is we're still playing Pelt Collectors, though we're up to 4 of them. We're also playing Robber of the Rich. We're down to 3, mostly because we wanted to make room for 2 Galias. We're still keeping all of the Zerta Goblins. Playing some main deck Scorching Dragonfires, 3 of them. 2 Domri's Ambush. We're playing the Bonecrusher Giant still. We're playing 3 of those. A full set of Gruul Spellbreaker, and 2 Collision Colossus, which are a recent, very recent, as of the last couple of hours addition. Everquill Phoenix, which we have replaced the main deck Gem Razors that were there before, and then we're still playing 4 Questing Beasts. Though I'm debating going to 3 Questing Beasts. I just want that out there. And then 3 Embercleaves. Lands, we're playing 1 Castle Embereth, 6 Mountains, 9 Forest, 4 Stomping Grounds, and 4 Temple of Abandon. Now, the reason we're doing this, let's just talk about all the main deck choices and why we've done what we've done. Like, the thing here is that we're still wanting to be hasty because that's the way we're fighting a lot of these other lists. Also, Galia is pretty important when you have that many haste creatures because she can let us cycle our hand. Because a lot of times against these different kind of, we'll say, they're sort of pseudo combo creature decks. There's a lot of graveyard manipulation decks of sorts between a couple of the different sacrifice decks and then the Garuda decks. And I'll say this, like, the thing is, your creatures are going to be equal or larger than most of the creatures you're going to see of the sacrifice decks, especially when Pelt Collector gets 3 or 4 counters. Your Spellbreaker is going to be a 3 or 4, that sort of thing. The other thing here too to be aware of is Heartless Act is actually a very popular removal card, as expected. We pointed that out even in the previews. It's going to be probably one of the better removal cards. And having the Zerta Goblin and the Spellbreaker have a counter on it actually keeps your opponent from being able to remove those. It's another benefit you get out of the Domri's Ambush, so keep that in mind. We're playing a couple of copies of Collision Colossus because a lot of times against the Garuda deck's main deck, game 1, a lot of times you have trouble punching through those last few points of damage. And if you can manage to use that with a Questing Beast, or even just get them to block a couple of things where you can kill and then kind of punch through those last couple of turns, it's still good for that. Unfortunately, you don't always have time to cast Embercleave. I mean, it sounds crazy, even with haste creatures, that you just can't get it on the table sometimes where it makes sense. So we're just playing 3 of them. Now, this list doesn't have Vivien main deck, which is a big deal because Vivien was huge for us, and unfortunately just didn't work out with everybody going to these faster decks. Now, for the first couple of days when people were still trying to play Bant mid-range and blue-white control, she was stud-tastic. But now, I would still play it, but I think we just need things to slow down just a little bit. With maybe a few less flyers in the format would actually make it a little bit better as well. Let's take a look at the sideboard, though. Here we have a pretty slim, we'll call it slim, streamlined sideboard compared to what we've been playing. So there's 3 red cap melees, 3 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 the remaining Scorching Dragonfire, 2 an X, 3 Gem Razor, and 3 Shifting Ceratops. We will say this about the sideboard. It could still use a little bit of adjusting. The format's moving really fast and changing really fast, so would not be shocked if we decide we want to change these at any point. Grafdigger's Cage, again, is kind of a concession to the Garuda decks, but it does have some play in the sacrifice decks as well. A lot of them are playing I can't remember the name of it, the Mothra. I don't know. I can't remember what the actual card name is at this point. But if you have things going there that can't be played out of the graveyard, it stops the cat from coming back with the food combo. Garuda can't get stuff out of the graveyard when it flips stuff there. So this is doing a lot of work in some of our problematic matchups. Scorching Dragonfire, it's good against a lot of the different creature decks. And I guess Gem Razor is also very obvious on what you're wanting against. So the sideboard's not very surprising. It's all the stuff we expected, and it just lets you fill in some gaps. But let's talk more about the strategy of this list, kind of in general, and where we ended up against what we expect to see. So yeah, as it turns out, some cards we thought were going to be better weren't. Even Gem Razor was actually fine, but there ended up being fewer artifacts and enchantments in the format. Though, odd as it is, there's an Umari deck that actually is all artifacts, and Gem Razor is spectacular in that matchup whenever you get it. So that's something to think about. There's also the Everquill Phoenix occasionally ran into an issue because we do play Robber of the Rich, which is one of the few humans in the deck. So remember, you can't actually mutate onto that. That's a big thing. But overall, we're really looking, we haven't seen many red decks, only a couple. People are playing, at least, I say this, at least at the higher levels of the ranked queues. It's possible that they will still be there because they apparently beat up on the Garuda decks pretty well. And don't forget, you can sometimes bring in extra removal against the Garuda decks, and it's actually viable. It'll allow you to kill their mana creatures, which is pretty good, or sometimes just give you the last few points of damage to punch through, get rid of the Garuda, and do what you need to do. So there's a little bit of that. As it turns out, our ranking was correct, and Garuda is the #1 companion being played in Standard. So kind of good that we prepared for that, had that on the top of mind. We really don't have any issues truly with the flash list, but the sideboard seems to help us out with that, so that's a benefit. Most of the other lists we fought have actually been pretty well. I mean, we stomped through the standard queue pretty well with this. We're only at 98% Mythic. I literally just stopped there, so once I got there, I could record the video. And I'm probably going to be playing the humans list for a little bit, and then coming back and trying to rank up with this deck. But I'm really digging it. I think it's really cool. Like I said, the only real downside for me was that we're no longer able to play Vivien right now, and that hurts my soul a little bit on the inside. But I think it's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. I can see Vivien coming right back into this list within the next few days, depending on how the format shapes out, especially if the Garuda list and stuff end up being less frequent, because right now I've been playing them about every third matchup, so they've been everywhere, and Vivien's just not good in those matchups. I would argue in those matchups we may even want an additional something like I don't know, it's just some additional thing to come over the top potentially. Maybe another Everquill Phoenix. I mean, that could be a big deal, but I don't know. There's a lot of options still that I'm exploring. So just saying, if you take this out there and know that there are still some road bumps in a couple of matchups, but we've at least given ourselves a shot. The trick against those decks, though, is do the maximum amount of damage quickly. You want your opponent sub 7 life, probably even sub 6 life, to give you a shot of being able to punch through. And don't be afraid of trading one of your creatures for one of their mana creatures. You actually will take that exchange all day long. Your goal is just pay attention to when are they likely to have 6 mana. If you can keep them off that early, that's all you're looking for. because eventually you just end up having to fight them creature for creature, and that's not what you want once they have a couple of big fatties sitting on the table. Sometimes you may also have to sit on your burn to just come at the opponent's face, and you don't have a lot of it. It's really in the form of stomp, so that's something to think about as well. But overall, if you like Gruul, I think you'll like this list. Like I said, this is the latest version. Feel free to make tweaks as necessary. Matter of fact, in the comments, let me know what type of Gruul lists have been working for you. I've heard there's some trample lists that people have been trying that have been pretty good. I've heard there's like a big Gruul list or something people have been playing. So yeah, I'm willing to hear some other solutions, and I would gladly play them on stream and check them out if people wanted to show them off. But that's all I've got for you today. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.